Hello, TPP Universe. I am Christopher Billings, the voice of the power plant, and I promised you guys a very special video on my Twitter. I found some old DieHard footage. We're talking from when DieHard was an independent wrestler in 2000 and when it was all professional wrestling when he was signed, but so we're just gonna kind of get into it. But I just want to give you some stats here. Now, for those of you that don't know, Die Hard was born on September 17th of 1969, and in the year of 2006, which is right here, you see a very young, naive, professional Die Hard. This was a professional wrestler Die Hard. He was not independent. He was signed to a different company. He was not in computer animated wrestling. He was it was a company called XFW. He was This was his first professional wrestling match, and as you see, a very young, jumping around Die Hard, and everybody wonders why he was wearing the knee pads and things of that nature. And the reason was, at the time, it was just for a gimmick look. He had injuries when he was wrestling in the Indies. You know, he broke his arm, he broke his back, things that said he wouldn't wrestle anymore. But he came into this matchup against a very young, the Hitman, who would then go on to wrestle in many other companies in the course of the years. But in 2006, this was one of Die Hard's professional matches. He became a professional wrestler in the year of 1994 when he was 25 years old. And then in 2006, this is some of the oldest footage I have been able to find. I haven't been able to find anything much older than this that maintained some sort of visual quality where we could avidly tell. But as you see here, we see a very young Die Hard. You know, this isn't the Die Hard that we know nowadays. This isn't the Die Hard that goes out there and, you know, jumps his opponents or beats his opponents down and stuff. He was just a good all-around guy. He was very friendly and nice to his opponents. He was a good guy in the backstage area. He was much slimmer here. As you see, his body mass was not that big. I mean, at this point in time, he was still gaining momentum as he was going on, and he looked impressive throughout every match I've seen him in. Whether he was, his first professional wrestling match in 1994 or his last retirement match in 2012. You know, Die Hard he's 18 years of professional wrestling. His son Anthony Guerrero Jr. followed in his footsteps, a second-generation superstar who is currently 22 years old. Die Hard was 22 years old when Anthony Guerrero Jr. was born, and to get signed professionally when he turned 25, a lot of Die Hard's career was spent not being around Anthony Guerrero Jr. And so immediately following this matchup, almost a full year later, Die Hard came back, and the knee brace look was no longer just a look. He was wearing the knee braces. He had a double knee surgery done. He had a match sometime in January, and he needed to have both of his knees surgically repaired. So he had a double knee surgery. He came back on November 5th of 2007, and he faced a very young, different-looking James Braden than what we're used to. At this time, James Braden was already a professional wrestler, but he was wrestling under the name of the Animal, not under James Braden. And so he wasn't that big at the time. He was a smaller guy, much like Die Hard. And at this time, as you see, Die Hard still was sporting the goatee, the mustache, and the long sideburns. But he was wrestling a very young James Braden with a mohawk, and he was wearing compression shorts in this matchup. And like I said, the double knee brace was not just a look. It was, because he was truly injured, and he was coming back. He was healing from his injuries. And Die Hard always has had a presence about him in his matches. I mean, even against his own brother-in-law, his first return match, he's able to go out there and do phenomenal things against his own brother-in-law. He's not afraid of hurting his brother-in-law, and that's something that makes Die Hard special. And as you'll see throughout these matches, you see courses of moves that a lot of wrestlers use nowadays that Die Hard was using then. And vice versa. Die Hard still uses some of these moves nowadays. And the fact that although Die Hard had his knee surgically repaired, he was still able to do beautiful, hanging suplexes like that. And as you see here, I mean, again, it's a younger DieHard. It's not the ruthless DieHard that we all know. So he's doing very basic maneuvers. He had a very large move repertoire, but he was still doing very basic maneuvers in his matches, and he's been plagued with injuries his entire career. And a little bit of backstory while we wait here. I mean, even at this time, we start seeing DieHard starting to have kind of the bad guy mindset, holding in the hold when a rope break was called. I've read the documents on DieHard 2 years before Anthony Guerrero Jr. was born. When DieHard was 20 years old, both his arms were broken in a wrestling match, and you know his back was broken just a few years later. And you see DieHard again still being a fan favorite. The fans still enjoyed him. You know, at this time they were still cheering for him. He was still adorned. He didn't have a massive global following or anything of that nature. He went out there and he did what he was supposed to do. And at this time, this was right about the time when DieHard got signed to computer animated wrestling and in his contract, which then we fast forward through the rest of 2007 and in through 2008, and we get brought to an interpromotional match. DieHard was just taking he was on a little bit of an off time. It was like a seasonal vacation for Kaw, and DieHard was challenged by former, friend, mentor, partner Braden Thompson, also known as the Blood God. That was his nickname, was the Blood God. He was the Blood God. He would make people bleed. And DieHard and Brandon Thompson and Brian Richardson and Brick Wall and Jordan, all these guys would all train together. They would all train together and have fun together. And everybody was expecting this was going to be just some friendly match. And in this match, we see DieHard with a much different look. He was sporting, a full beard a year later. He was still having the short hair, but the fact that he was outsized and outmatched and outpowered in this match against Brandon Thompson. And then to think, not even 6 months later, DieHard would officially announce that he was forming his own company and calling it the Power Plant, which, now we know the rest of that history after he called it the Power Plant, but nobody knew the history before that. And this is the final match that Brandon Thompson and DieHard had. And I warn you now, ladies and gentlemen, this match does have blood in it. There is, you will see DieHard bleed. And if you're squeamish, you may want to stop the video. But if not, you get to see a kind of DieHard that's reminiscent of nowadays. We started seeing DieHard getting more tattoos on his body. He was starting to, as you see, his right arm tattoo that he still has to this day. His left arm tattoo, which he got that finished, just about a year later, when the Power Plant was featured on the YouTube. But as you see here, this is the DieHard. This DieHard is more reminiscent of the DieHard we know now, except this DieHard was still being cheered by the fans. He wasn't being booed, and he was still much smaller than his opponents. He wasn't built the way he is now. And seeing DieHard step into the ring against Brandon Thompson, and as you saw, DieHard just blatant disrespect for his opponents, throwing up the bird, throwing up a middle finger. But Brandon Thompson, again, like I said, he had a physical size advantage. He was able to bully DieHard in this matchup. And this is why, and I was tweeting about this to Jimmy B. Martinez on Twitter, but I feel that this match could possibly be the reason why, or the match that shaped the DieHard that we know now. Because Brandon Thompson brought out the best in DieHard. He brought out the best and the worst all at the same time. He made DieHard do things in this match that DieHard wouldn't normally do. Any good, normal, sane guy would not do these types of things, but Brandon Thompson brought it out of him and got him to do this, and I think that is what pushed DieHard over the edge and to do the things that he does. And again, Brandon Thompson, at the time, he weighed about 300 pounds, and DieHard was weighing maybe 230 pounds, 220 pounds. He was nowhere near as strong as what Brandon Thompson was. And at this time, it was infamous for the DieHard dungeon jokes about his training regimen with James Braden, Brick Wall, and Jordan Moore, Grosser, and others. But you even see here DieHard quick roll-ups from DieHard, who would later on become the longest reigning TPP champion, the longest reigning tag team champion, a Hall of Famer. And as I said, folks, remember, I told you there would be blood in this matchup, and it will happen. And I mean, this match was very back and forth. This was an Iron Man match on December 21st of 2008. This match will go down in infamy for DieHard and for Brandon Thompson. This was that match that made them who they are. And this is where we start seeing like a heel side of DieHard coming out. As you're watching this video here, and you see DieHard taunting Brandon Thompson while he's got him straddled on the ropes. And because DieHard was still a little naive here, he didn't realize he just wouldn't have the energy to keep lifting Brandon Thompson like that. And he ran out of energy. I mean, luckily he was able to kick out, for DieHard's sake. And at this time we were still tied up 0-0, which is good. But Brandon Thompson, that Fame-Asser right there, that's what busted DieHard open. DieHard was bleeding, but even though he was bleeding, still, again, another quick roll-up. I thought for sure when I was watching this match, I literally was on the edge of my seat. If you could watch this whole match, you would have been on the edge of your seat. And at this time, I didn't know who DieHard was. I didn't know, what he was about. I didn't meet DieHard until about a year later when he contacted me about being a talent relations manager. And we start to see shades of what DieHard would become. And this match was that match. This match set it up. This match was the shaping point and that edge that DieHard needed to be able to push himself, to be able to run the power plant successfully and do those things. And late in the match, we were down to about the final 5 minutes, and Brandon Thompson took a high risk to the outside, and it did not pay off. DieHard saw it coming. He saw it coming, and this is where the heel side of DieHard really comes out. These final 5 minutes, bashing his head into the steel ring post there. And the one thing nobody ever saw DieHard do was this final finishing maneuver until now. The Bulldog out of the corner. There's one other video where you see him do this, and it was inside of Khan. It was a Bulldog out of the corner to pick up the win. And that is what set it. The final score in this Iron Man match was 3-2 for DieHard to win this matchup against Brandon Thompson. Former friends, former training partners, former sparring partners. They were friends. They worked together, trained together, played together, partied together, whatever they did. And as you see, DieHard, a bloody mess, still holding his head high, still holding his hand high. And less than a year later, DieHard would turn around and launch his own company, and things would never be the same again for any place, because DieHard at this point had made his statement to everybody that was in the community, in the wrestling community. He laid down the gauntlet and said, "I'm coming, and I'm coming big time." And I really felt that it was important for you guys to be able to see this, because I wanted to know what it was that drove the DieHard that we see now. The DieHard that beats up on his opponents after the matches, that attacks them from behind. I wanted to know what made him have to do that. And in my personal, professional opinion, his match with Brandon Thompson, had he not pulled out the stops, Brandon Thompson would have won that match. And there may not have ever been a TPP frontline, or the power plant may have never existed. So thank you for joining me for the past 14 minutes almost. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Christopher Billings, the voice of the power plant. Make sure to tune in to TPP Frontline when it does come to you live on June 21st of 2013. Again, I'm Christopher Billings, so on behalf of everybody at Full Screen, everybody at Creator X, everybody here on TPP Frontline, everybody in TPP Management, again, Christopher Billings here. Thank you for watching, and have a good one, guys. We'll see you next time.